The Qatar strike, shifting doctrines in a changed Middle East. In the shadowed corridors of power, where strategic decisions shape the fate of nations, a tremor recently rippled through the Middle East. Qatar, for decades considered a safe haven for exiled leaders and a meticulously neutral mediator, suddenly became the epicenter of a bold and unprecedented military operation. The target, Hamas leadership nestled in discreet, well-guarded compounds. The perpetrators, forces whose motives, patrons, and methods spoke of an era where restraint gave way to proactive doctrines and the notion of sanctuary faded into myth. The world's gaze immediately shifted to Doha, lush, cosmopolitan, wealthy, where for years the leadership of Hamas found sanctuary. As missiles streaked through the night, ending the myth of invulnerability, to understand the magnitude of this attack, one must recount Qatar's strategic position, not only as a diplomatic broker in endless Middle Eastern disputes, but as a host to the largest American military base in the region, Al Udeid Air Base. This sprawling complex has, for years, underwritten America's campaigns in Iraq, Iran, and Afghanistan. Qatar, too, maintained close ties with both the United States and, controversially, groups the West considered problematic, chief among them, Hamas. It was a calculated balancing act, a performance on a high wire above boiling regional rivalries. But something changed. For years, despite quiet grumblings and covert preparations, no state dared to breach Qatar's immunity. God knows, why did you not attack? Some questioned. Many factors conspired. Qatari wealth, American alliance, the risk of escalation. Yet this time something snapped. For the first time in history, a direct attack targeted the Hamas leadership within Qatari borders, a message of deterrence that resonated far beyond the Persian Gulf. Religious motivations, intelligence coups, and geopolitical maneuvering all converged. Yet the most critical element lay elsewhere, in the evolving doctrines of regional powers. Once, cross-border reprisals remained rare, given the omnipresent risk of American retaliation or diplomatic blowback. But recent events shattered that constraint. The calculus of risk and reward had shifted. Qatar's role as a U.S. ally did not offer the protection it once had. The world had watched as India, in a bold and unprecedented move, launched a punitive strike against Pakistani-backed militants deep within Pakistani territory. Pakistan, long considered America's vital strategic asset in the region, discovered its alliance was no ironclad shield. If India could strike Pakistan, a nation integral to American South Asian strategy, with little consequence, who, in the Middle East, could claim untouchability anymore? Pakistan and Qatar both harbored entities central to conflicts across the region. Both played the double game of hosting American interests while accommodating actors and ideologies opposed to American policies. The difference, the doctrine, the political will, and the perception of what could be gotten away with. This is not to ignore the unique complexities of the Qatar-Hamas relationship. For years, Doha issued quiet assurances. The Hamas leaders it hosted exercised restraint. They constituted a channel for peace talks. Critics in Israel and across the Arab world scoffed. How long, they asked, could Qatar shelter leaders orchestrating attacks from afar and expect immunity from consequences? The answer came not from rumors or threats, but from the sudden clinical violence of the strike. A team, its number, training, and origin subjects of immediate speculation, slipped into, or perhaps fired into, the heart of Doha's protected neighborhoods. The weapon, precision munitions, what is indisputable is that the result was devastating. Key Hamas leaders dead, safe houses destroyed, Qatari security thrown into disarray, and the world left grasping for explanations. How many attackers were involved? Estimates from intelligence sources suggest a small, tightly coordinated unit, no more than 10 men on the ground, supported by air or drone strikes, the signatures reminiscent of Israeli and potentially Indian operations seen elsewhere. The weapons, surgical strikes with advanced munitions, standoff missiles or loitering drones capable of evading detection, bypassing typical countermeasures. The reported failure of Qatari, and by extension, U.S. air defense systems to detect the Israeli missiles used in the recent strike on Doha is a significant anomaly, raising questions about both the operational technology and the geopolitical implications of such undetected activity. Technically, Qatar fields a mix of Western-supplied air defense systems, including Patriot PAC-3, NASAMS, and early warning radars, all designed to detect, track, and intercept a range of aerial threats. U.S. military forces based at Al Udeid, with advanced sensors and integrated data links, would typically provide a second layer of monitoring. The fact that neither picked up the incoming Israeli munitions suggests several possible explanations. Low observable technology. Israel may have used missiles with reduced radar cross-section (RCS) signatures, such as the Rampage or Delilah missiles, which use contour-hugging flight paths, stealth shaping, and possibly electronic countermeasures, drastically reducing detectability by conventional ground-based radar. Flight profile and launch parameters. Missiles may have been launched from unexpected angles or with terrain masking, minimizing radar exposure. Insider info or system blind spots. There's a remote possibility of deliberate system blind spots, pre-programmed or coordinated to avoid detection, though this is speculative. Politically, the U.S. notifying Qatar after the attack, rather than preventing or preempting, suggests at least some prior awareness, but possibly insufficient detail on timing or methods. This could indicate selective U.S. transparency or Israel's use of capabilities not fully shared or anticipated by its closest partners, underscoring mistrust between allies or gaps in intelligence sharing. The event highlights growing unpredictability in modern stealth, precision strikes, even in heavily monitored airspace, posing critical questions about the efficacy of Allied and U.S. integrated air defense systems in the Gulf region. The fingerprints of a technologically advanced, intelligence-driven campaign. Rapid entry, high-value targets neutralized, extraction commenced before local authorities could muster an effective response. But what of Qatar's role in all this, a nation long famed for its patronage of Hamas? Since 2012, Doha has hosted the group's political bureau. Funds have changed hands, and its leaders have made their homes in luxury. For years, this arrangement provided diplomatic leverage, a bargaining chip in mediating ceasefires and hostage releases. Yet with regional tempers fraying and old doctrines discarded, the cost of this hospitality grew. Observers point to Israel's evolving regional calculus. In an era where deterrence hinges on visible retribution, allowing Hamas leaders to operate from Qatar became intolerable. And with the world distracted, Ukraine-Taiwan economic crises, the time was ripe. India's recent actions against Pakistan emboldened others. The message, punitive, extraterritorial strikes, could now be conducted without catastrophic diplomatic fallout. The implications are profound. For Israel, the attack on Qatar marks an expansion of its doctrine. Terror architects can no longer rely on foreign safety. For India, it validates their own strategy, a template now exported beyond South Asia. For Qatar, and by extension, Pakistan, America's old allies, there is a sobering realization. Friendship with Washington is no longer a universal shield. And what of the United States? The official reactions mingled disavowal, concern, and critically, a lack of decisive intervention. American diplomats expressed serious concern at the breach of Qatari sovereignty, reaffirmed their commitment to allied security, but stopped short of condemning the perpetrators or threatening retaliation. Behind closed doors, some suspect, the White House considers such strikes a warning to regional actors who grow too comfortable playing both sides. Meanwhile, India's success in striking Pakistani territory repeatedly with limited consequences set a precedent some in Israel and perhaps elsewhere look to. When alliances become transactional, when American power is more symbolic than real, regional actors adapt. Old red lines fade, new doctrines emerge, proactive, punitive, flexible. Pakistan's own strategic holdings, assets, pipelines, key intelligence nodes are the backbone of its relationship with Washington. Yet even as Islamabad remains a central player, its lack of response and America's muted rebuke to Indian incursions emboldened India and Israel alike. When superpower guarantees diminish, states recalibrate, seeking new forms of deterrence and self-defense. It is not just a matter of tactical change, but a strategic revolution. In years past, the notion of an Indian airstrike inside Pakistan or an Israeli-style operation in the heart of Doha would have seemed a step too far. Yet the region changed. America's focus, split across continents, grows weary of endless regional commitments. Deterrence, always a delicate balance, is now enforced by those with the capability and the will to act decisively, regardless of past taboos. Other actors are watching: Turkey, Iran, the Gulf monarchies, considering what this means for their security, their own doctrines of deterrence, and their alignment with Western power. The calculations grow complex. Qatar, chastened and exposed, must reconsider its balancing act. Pakistan, facing an unpredictable India, questions its traditional policies. America, meanwhile, must reconcile its desire to avoid escalation with the risk of appearing irrelevant. So how long did the Qataris harbor Hamas leadership? Over a decade, enough time for habits to form, for networks to grow, for the myth of sanctuary to harden into policy. The attack shattered that myth. Suddenly, nowhere is off limits, and as the news spread across the region, through embassies, ministries, intelligence outposts, the message was clear: the landscape of power and protection had forever shifted. The unspoken reality is that American influence is not what it once was. Its ability or willingness to block such attacks is in question. India's rise as a proactive military power has not gone unnoticed. Punitively striking wherever its interests demand, India changed the calculus not just for Pakistan, but for the region. Its actions signal a readiness to cross old boundaries, to enforce its doctrines with force. That left other nations, Israel among them, contemplating similar strategies vis-à-vis threats sheltered abroad. Ultimately, in this world of shifting alliances, of blurred lines between friend and foe, one lesson remains: power belongs to those willing to use it. The age of consequence-free safe haven is over. As dawn breaks over Doha, a new reality emerges, one where sanctuary is measured not by geography, but by the willingness of others to respect that sanctuary. Where doctrines shift, deterrence is dynamic, and above all, where action speaks louder than alliances. Qatar will now rebuild, reconsider, and navigate new complexities in its relationships with Hamas, with America, with the broader Arab world. Israel will weigh future actions, emboldened by the success of this strike and the world's muted response. India, having set the new regional standard, will continue recalibrating deterrence across its borders. Pakistan, friend of the US, yet unable to prevent intrusions, finds its strategic calculus altered forever. And America, faced with the reality of finite power, it will either adapt to these new doctrines, redefining its role from universal arbiter to pragmatic partner, or else watch as the world finds its own methods for enforcing consequence. The strike on Qatar is more than a moment. It is a signal, a sound that will echo through war rooms, diplomatic summits, and the calculations of every leader from Riyadh to Tehran, Islamabad to Jerusalem. Going forward, every host of exiles, every patron of factions, every strategist plotting in the shadows will remember: in the new Middle East, there are no more untouchables.